Most people don't realize this, but the way you treat yourself today was decided years ago, not by logic, not by choice, but by a handful of quiet thoughts you've been repeating without noticing. Thoughts that sound harmless, thoughts that feel familiar, thoughts that quietly decide how much love you allow yourself to receive. You don't wake up one day treating yourself badly on purpose. It happens slowly. In the tone you use when you make a mistake, in the way you push past exhaustion, in how quickly you forgive others, and how rarely you forgive yourself. These patterns feel normal until you see them clearly. Here is the truth most people miss. You are not responding to life as it is. You are responding to the thoughts you believe about yourself. Change those thoughts, and something deeper than behavior begins to shift. Your body listens, your emotions soften. Your world responds differently. If you've ever wondered why self-care feels hard, why kindness toward yourself feels uncomfortable, it's because certain thoughts taught you that love must be earned. That rest must be justified, that you are only worthy when you're useful, productive, or pleasing. These thoughts were not chosen, they were learned, absorbed during moments when you needed safety or approval. And because they've lived inside you for so long, they now sound like your own voice. But they are not the truth. They are habits of thinking. What if just one thought could change how you speak to yourself tomorrow morning? What if another could soften how you react when you fall short? And what if, slowly, those thoughts began to rewrite the relationship you have with your own heart? This is not about forcing positivity or pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing thoughts that heal instead of punish, thoughts that create safety instead of pressure, thoughts that teach your nervous system it no longer has to stay on guard. Listen closely. Not every thought deserves your loyalty. Some were formed in pain, some were built from misunderstanding, and some are ready to be released if you're willing to see them for what they are. Stay with this message. Let it unfold gently. The thoughts you're about to hear are small, simple, and powerful. And if you let them in, they won't just change how you think, they will change how you treat yourself, starting today. There is a gentle doorway that opens the moment you say, I am willing. You do not have to know how to change. You do not have to feel ready. You simply have to be willing. Willingness is the soft light that slips beneath the door of an old, dark room. It doesn't break anything open. It simply invites another way to enter. For many years, you may have lived with certain ideas about yourself, ideas formed in childhood, shaped by the tone of voices around you, carried into adulthood without question. When we are young, we do not know we are collecting beliefs. We accept everything as truth. We do not realize that we are absorbing opinions, moods, and fears that never belong to us. And yet, they settle in the mind and quietly shape how we treat ourselves. Self-criticism often doesn't begin with a decision. It begins with forgetting that we have a choice. When you repeat harsh thoughts long enough, they begin to feel familiar, and what feels familiar begins to feel normal. But familiarity is not truth. Familiarity is simply habit. And the beautiful thing about habits is that they can be changed gently, lovingly, moment by moment. Saying, I am willing to see myself differently is like placing a small lantern in the hands of your inner child. She may have been walking in dim corridors of old judgment for many years. She may have become accustomed to believing the worst about herself. But when you offer her willingness, she begins to see another path, a path lined with possibility rather than punishment. You do not need to force new thoughts right away. In fact, forcing only repeats the old pattern of pressure. Instead, let willingness be soft. Let it be a gentle opening, a whisper to yourself that sounds something like, perhaps I am kinder than I believed. Perhaps I am more deserving than I was taught. Perhaps there is another way. These small perhapses are great healers. They loosen the soil where new beliefs can grow. Notice how your body responds when you consider seeing yourself differently. Perhaps your chest softens. Perhaps your breath becomes quieter. Perhaps there is a small feeling of relief, relief that you no longer have to defend old thoughts. The body recognizes truth before the mind does. And your body knows that you are not meant to live under the weight of harshness. When you say, I am willing to see myself differently, you invite the mind to rest. You loosen its grip on the old stories. You allow the past to fade gently into the background, not forgotten, but no longer leading your life. You create a space within you where new compassion can grow. That space is sacred. That space is healing. That space is your beginning. The willingness to change is not a loud declaration. It is a soft shift. It is the moment the heart sighs and says, maybe I don't have to treat myself this way anymore. The mind may resist at first. Old thoughts may rise loudly, insisting that nothing can change. But willingness does not argue with them. It simply continues to open, like a flower turning toward the sun. Think of someone you once loved unconditionally, a child, an animal, a sweet memory of innocence. The kindness you directed outward can now be slowly redirected inward. Willingness helps you remember this. It helps you rediscover the gentleness you have always had. You are not learning compassion, you are remembering it. When you treat yourself with old criticism, you tighten. When you treat yourself with even a small drop of willingness, you soften. The softening is where transformation begins. You cannot grow from a place of tension. Growth requires warmth. Growth requires space. Growth requires a willingness to see what is beautiful in you. The thought, I am willing to see myself differently, is not asking you to erase your past. It is inviting you to reinterpret it. Instead of saying, I failed, you begin to say, I learned. Instead of saying, I am not enough, you begin to say, I am growing. Instead of saying, I am broken, you begin to say, I am healing. These shifts may seem small, but they are profound. They change how the heart feels inside the body. Every new beginning starts with willingness. Not certainty, not confidence, not perfection. Simply a willingness to loosen your grip on old pain and to allow a kinder thought to enter. Even if it feels fragile at first, even if you doubt it, willingness is the bridge between who you have been and who you are becoming. Let yourself rest in this thought for a moment. Feel its softness, feel its simplicity, feel its power. You are willing to see yourself differently. You are willing to see your life differently. You are willing to see your worth differently. And as this willingness settles in your heart, a quiet transformation begins, one that unfolds naturally, gently, in its own time. In part 2, this willingness becomes the foundation for a new inner voice, one that no longer speaks to you as an enemy, but as a loving companion. There is a moment, gentle yet powerful, when you begin to notice the tone you use with yourself. Not the words you say to others, but the quiet words spoken only within your mind. These words shape the atmosphere you live in. They color the way you see your body, your choices, your emotions, your very existence. And for many people, this inner voice has become an unintended enemy. Not by choice, not by intention, but by habit. Habits learned long before you had the awareness to question them. When you were very young, you listened to the voices around you. You absorbed their tone far more than their content. Children hear through feeling. They learn safety from softness and fear from tension. And so you learned without knowing which tones meant comfort and which meant danger, which meant approval and which meant disappointment. Over time, without ever deciding to, you began repeating those tones inwardly as you grew older. This is how the inner critic is born, not from truth, but from imitation. But now, as you step into this new thought, I no longer speak to myself as an enemy, you begin to reclaim your internal world. You begin to examine not whether your inner voice is correct, but whether it is kind. not whether it is efficient, but whether it is loving. You begin to notice how certain thoughts tighten your chest, how certain tones draw your shoulders inward, how self-judgment creates a small collapse inside the body, a collapse your inner child feels deeply. To heal, you do not need to silence the inner critic. You simply need to stop giving it authority. You simply need to hear it and respond with a different voice, the voice you are now learning to cultivate, the voice of love. Imagine for a moment that a child comes to you after making a mistake. She looks up at you with wide, uncertain eyes, waiting to know how you will respond. Will you scold her? Will you shame her? Will you remind her of every time she has ever failed? Or will you kneel gently, hold her hands, and say, "It's all right, my darling. Everyone makes mistakes. You are still lovable. You are still good. You are learning." When you speak to yourself as an enemy, your inner child hears harshness. When you speak to yourself as a friend, she hears safety, and safety is what allows her to grow. Begin to notice your inner tone in quiet moments. Notice what you say to yourself when you wake up, when you look in the mirror, when you forget something, when you feel tired. These are the moments when the inner enemy loves to rise. But these are also the moments when the inner friend can begin to take shape. Instead of saying, "I can't believe you did that," try whispering, "It's all right, sweetheart." Instead of saying, "You should be better than this," try. You're doing the best you can. Instead of tightening around your mistakes, try softening around them. Self-kindness is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about removing punishment from the process of being human. When you remove punishment, learning becomes easier. Healing becomes faster. Life becomes softer. You may feel resistance at first. That is normal. If you have spoken harshly to yourself for many years, a gentle voice may feel strange, even unearned. But the only reason it feels unearned is because the inner critic has been speaking uninterrupted for so long. You are not unworthy of kindness. You are unaccustomed to it. There is a great difference. Let the new voice begin softly. You do not need to scold the critic. You do not need to fight it. Fighting simply creates more tension. Instead, allow the loving voice to speak beside it. Allow it to offer a different interpretation, a different feeling, a different way. Over time, the loving voice becomes the one you trust. One of the most healing truths you will ever learn is this: you cannot hate yourself into becoming the person you want to be. But you can love yourself into becoming the person you were always meant to be. The moment you stop speaking to yourself as an enemy, your heart begins to heal. Your nervous system softens. Your body feels less threatened by your own thoughts. You stop living in a constant state of inner alarm. And the child inside you, who once braced for every harsh word, begins to relax. She begins to believe that home, the home within you, might finally be safe. Pay attention to what your body does when you shift your tone. A harsh voice tightens the belly. A gentle voice warms the chest. A critical voice narrows the breath. A kind voice deepens it. Your body tells the truth. Your heart tells the truth. Your inner child tells the truth. Speak to yourself as a friend and see how quickly your body responds with relief. Self-talk is not simply mental chatter. It is the emotional environment your inner child lives in. When you speak harshly, she curls inward. When you speak kindly, she reaches out. She opens. She trusts. And trust leads to healing far more quickly than judgment ever could. Let this thought take root in you now. I no longer speak to myself as an enemy. Feel how empowering that is. Feel how freeing it is. Feel how tender it is. You are not abandoning yourself anymore. You are befriending yourself. You are learning to offer to yourself the love you once waited for. In part 3, this inner friendship will deepen as you learn to recognize and honor your own needs, needs that have been quiet for years, needs that are ready to be met. with tenderness. There is a quiet moment in every healing journey when you begin to realize that the needs you once dismissed, minimized, or apologized for are not inconveniences. They are messages, important messages. Your needs are not flaws. They are signals from your inner world gently reminding you that you have a heart, a body, a spirit that require care. And for many people, this realization feels foreign, even uncomfortable, because they learned early in life that their needs were too much, too loud, or too inconvenient. When a child grows up in an environment where their needs are not met with tenderness, they learn to silence themselves. They learn to pretend they are fine. They learn to adjust, to adapt, to anticipate others instead of feeling their own longings. Over time, ignoring their needs becomes second nature. It becomes a habit of survival. And that habit follows them into adulthood, where exhaustion becomes proof of effort and self-neglect becomes mistaken for strength. But here, in this new healing thought, you are learning something revolutionary. Your needs are sacred. They matter. They deserve tenderness. Imagine for a moment your inner child tugging gently at your sleeve. She does not have the words to explain her needs. She only knows how to feel them. When you dismiss your needs, she hears, "Your feelings do not matter." When you push yourself past exhaustion, she hears, "Your limits are not important." When you apologize for needing rest or comfort, she hears, "You must earn love by being easy." But when you pause, when you listen, when you respond with gentleness, she hears something entirely new. "I matter. I am allowed to need. I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to receive." This changes everything. Let yourself breathe softly as you consider this. For many years, you may have believed that attending to your needs was selfish. This belief is not natural. It was learned. And anything learned can be unlearned through love. Self-care is not indulgence. Self-care is responsibility. Self-care is how you show your inner child that she is worth tending to. Your needs are not interruptions. They are invitations, doorways to deeper self-understanding. When you feel tired, your body is speaking. When you feel overwhelmed, your emotions are speaking. When you feel lonely, your heart is speaking. When you feel anxious, your nervous system is speaking. These messages deserve your attention, not irritation, not dismissal. Attention. You may be surprised to discover how softly your needs speak. They do not shout, they whisper. And because you've spent many years overriding them, it may take time to hear them clearly again. That is all right. You are learning, you are returning. You are reawakening an inner relationship with yourself that was quiet for too long. Begin noticing the small signals throughout your day. A yawn you push aside. A sigh that slips out when you think no one notices. A heaviness behind your eyes after too many demands. A longing for silence. A desire to cry. A need for affection, warmth, time, softness. None of these signals are weaknesses. They are forms of communication. Your needs do not make you needy. Your needs make you human. And when you meet those needs with tenderness, something profound begins to happen. Your inner child relaxes. She learns that she does not have to shout to be heard. She learns that her desires will not be punished or ignored. She learns to trust the adult you, the part of you that can protect her, care for her, and offer what she could not find in childhood. Think for a moment about how gently you would care for a small child who is tired. You would not tell her she must earn her rest. You would not tell her she is dramatic for feeling overwhelmed. You would not tell her she is selfish for wanting comfort. You would gather her in your arms, stroke her hair, whisper kind words, and let her lean against you. This is how you must treat yourself now. When you acknowledge your needs, you are not being weak. You are being loving. You are being wise. You are being honest. And honesty is the beginning of healing. Many people live their lives ignoring their needs until their bodies force them to listen. But you do not have to wait for that. You can begin now with one gentle breath, one moment of permission, one whisper of reassurance that says, I am allowed to care for myself. Let yourself consider this thought deeply. When you treat your needs with tenderness, you teach your inner child that she is lovable. When you dismiss your needs, you teach her that she must shrink to be accepted. And she has shrunk for long enough. Your mind may try to tell you that others have it worse, or that you should be stronger, or that you don't deserve to slow down. These thoughts are remnants of old conditioning. They are not truths. They are echoes. And echoes fade in the presence of steady love. Begin replacing those old echoes with softer thoughts. My feelings are real. My needs are valid. I deserve comfort. It is safe to take care of myself. Feel how your body responds to these truths. Feel the gentle relief. Feel the softening that occurs when self-love replaces self-denial. As you continue this healing path, attending to your needs will no longer feel like a burden or an afterthought. It will feel natural. It will feel nourishing. It will feel like returning to a home you forgot you belonged to. And when your needs are met with tenderness, your entire inner world shifts. You become more patient with yourself, more accepting, more loving. You begin to create a life built not on pressure, but on care. And that care expands into every area of your being. In Part 4, this tenderness deepens as we explore what it means to rest, not as a luxury, not as a reward, but as your sacred right. There is a quiet belief many people carry, often without knowing, that rest must be justified, that comfort must be earned, that stillness must be deserved. This belief rarely begins in adulthood. It begins in childhood, when moments of rest were permitted only after tasks were completed, behaviors were perfected, or expectations were met. Over time, rest became tied to performance, and performance became tied to worth. But here, in this gentle moment of your healing journey, I want you to hear a new truth. You are safe to rest simply because you exist. Rest is not a reward. Rest is a human need. Rest is a form of love. Imagine yourself as a child once more. Imagine how often your small body longed for pauses, moments of holding, rocking, quietness, warmth. Those needs did not vanish as you grew older. They simply went underground, replaced by demands and responsibilities. But the body never forgets what it needs. The heart never forgets either. Rest remains a sacred necessity, not a privilege, granted only when you have been good enough. When you deny yourself rest, your inner child feels abandoned. She learns that comfort is something she must earn. She begins to associate exhaustion with worth and strain with success. But none of this is true. These ideas were handed to you by a world that forgot its own innocence, a world that confuses busyness with value. You do not need to prove anything to deserve rest. You do not need to finish every task. You do not need to meet every expectation. You do not need to please every person. Your body is allowed to soften. Your breath is allowed to slow. Your heart is allowed to rest in this very moment. When you begin to rest without guilt, something inside you shifts. A long-standing tension begins to melt. The shoulders ease. The breath deepens. The mind becomes quieter, less frantic, more open. This is not laziness. This is healing. Rest is the natural response of a body no longer living in fear of being judged for slowing down. Rest is how your inner child learns safety. Think of how you would comfort a tired child who has been holding herself together for too long. You would not say, "You may rest only after you do more." You would not say, "You must earn your comfort." You would scoop her into your arms, hold her against your chest, and say softly, "You've done enough, my darling. You can rest now." This is how you must speak to yourself. Your inner child has been waiting for those words. She has been waiting for permission, permission to put down the weight she has carried for far too long. You can give her that permission now. Say inwardly, I am safe to rest. I do not need to earn it. Feel how your body responds. Feel how your breath softens its edges. Feel how your heart loosens its tight grip. When the nervous system feels safety, it allows rest. When it feels danger, it resists it. This is why rest is so difficult for those who grew up without emotional safety. Their bodies learned early that relaxation was risky. They learned to stay alert, to stay strong, to stay productive. But now, through your loving presence, you are teaching your body that softness is allowed. Rest is not an act of indulgence. It is an act of retraining, retraining your mind, retraining your breath, retraining your inner child to feel safe in stillness. You may notice that when you even think about resting, old thoughts rise up. You should be doing more. You haven't earned a break. Other people need you. You're falling behind. These thoughts are not truths. They are echoes. Echoes of a time when your value was tied to effort. Now you are choosing a new thought, a healing thought, a liberating thought. I am safe to rest without earning it. Let that thought reach the parts of you that have never heard such kindness. Let it settle into the child inside who once feared slowing down. Let it reassure the adult inside who has carried too much for too long. Rest nurtures the nervous system in ways nothing else can. It restores your clarity. It strengthens your intuition. It softens your emotional world. It makes space for peace to rise within you. When you allow rest, you teach your inner child that life is not a race. You teach her that her worth is not measured by productivity. You teach her that she is more than her accomplishments. You teach her that she is loved simply for being. This is one of the most profound gifts you can give yourself. Permission to stop, permission to breathe, permission to be. And as you practice resting without guilt, you will notice something remarkable. Your body begins to trust you. Your mind begins to slow its pace. Your inner child begins to lean toward you rather than shrink away. She begins to believe that you will not push her beyond her limits. She begins to relax into your care. This trust becomes the foundation for deeper healing. In the next part of our journey, we will explore another liberating thought, one that allows you to release old guilt and soften the weight of mistakes. But for now, rest in this truth. You are safe to rest. You are worthy of rest. You do not need to earn the right to comfort. You already deserve it because you exist. There is a soft truth that begins to rise once you have cared for your needs, once you have allowed yourself to rest, once you have loosened the harsh voice within. You begin to remember the many moments from your past when you simply did not know better. Not because you were careless, not because you were flawed, but because you were growing, learning, surviving, doing the best you could with the understanding you had at the time. And yet, for so many people, these memories become sources of shame. They look back at an earlier version of themselves and judge her with the wisdom they only gained later. They forget that knowledge comes through time, through experience, through pain, through living. They forget that the younger self was not equipped with what the older self now holds. And in this forgetting, they turn against themselves. They carry guilt for choices made in innocence. They carry blame for actions taken in confusion. They carry shame for moments in which they needed compassion, not reprimand. But hear me gently now. You cannot punish yourself into healing. You can only love yourself into forgiveness. Let yourself breathe that in. Let it touch the places where guilt still clings. Let it soften the parts of you that expect perfection from a younger heart. Let it remind you that forgiveness is not approval of the past, it is release from the past. When you say, I forgive myself for not knowing what I could not have known, you acknowledge a profound truth. You were doing your best, truly. Even in the moments that now make you wince, even in the moments you wish you could erase. The child you were, the teenager you were, the younger adult you were, they were navigating a world with limited guidance, limited awareness, limited tools. Forgiveness means seeing your past self with tenderness instead of judgment. Forgiveness means understanding context. Forgiveness means acknowledging innocence, not condemning it. Imagine your younger self standing before you, eyes lowered, shoulders tense, holding her breath as she waits for your verdict. She expects blame because that is what she has carried for years. She expects rejection because that is what old beliefs taught her. But you are not here to repeat those old patterns. You are here to heal them. Breathe gently. Softly lift her chin in your mind. Look at her with love. Say to her, "You did not know then what I know now. I understand. I forgive you." Feel the relief in those words. Feel how your body loosens. Feel how the inner child exhales. Forgiveness is not an intellectual act, it is a felt experience. The heart recognizes its truth instantly. The spirit recognizes its freedom. The nervous system recognizes safety. Forgiveness softens the tension of self-blame. It dissolves old fear. It takes the weight out of memories that once felt heavy. There may be times when you resist forgiving yourself. You may feel you should have known better. You may judge yourself through the lens of hindsight. But hindsight is a teacher that arrives late to the lesson. You cannot use tomorrow's wisdom to punish yesterday's innocence. That is not healing. That is cruelty disguised as responsibility. Real responsibility is compassion. Real growth is tenderness. Real wisdom is gentle. Say again, slowly, "I forgive myself for not knowing what I could not have known." Notice where your body tightens. Notice where it softens. These sensations show you where forgiveness is needed most. You might think of relationships where you stayed too long. You might think of words you wish you never said. You might think of opportunities you didn't take. You might think of limits you didn't know you could break. All of these memories carry lessons. None of them need to carry shame. You are not the person who made those choices anymore. You have grown. You have learned. You have expanded. You have awakened to new possibilities. Why punish a version of yourself who did not yet know how to do that? Forgiveness allows the past to loosen its grip. It frees the heart from old heaviness. It lets the inner child feel seen rather than judged. It opens space for new thoughts to form, new patterns to emerge, new peace to rise. Forgiveness is the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Some people fear forgiveness because they think it excuses wrongdoing. But forgiveness is not erasure. It is understanding. It is compassion. It is the recognition that you were shaped by your experiences, your conditioning, your fears, your hopes, your circumstances. And once you see this, how could you not offer tenderness to your younger self? If you knew then what you know now, you would have done differently. That is not guilt. That is maturity. Let yourself sit with that truth. Let it warm you. Let it free you. You might imagine placing your hands over your heart and saying inwardly, "I release the burden of self-blame. I choose compassion. I choose peace." Your heart responds to these words with gratitude. Your inner child responds with trust. Your entire being responds with relief. As this healing deepens, you begin to notice that your memory becomes kinder. You no longer look back to criticize. You look back to understand. You look back to honor the steps that brought you here. You look back as a loving parent would look at a child learning to walk, seeing the stumbles not as failures, but as part of a beautiful process. Forgiving yourself softens your future as well. You begin to make choices not from fear of mistakes, but from love. You begin to treat yourself with leniency instead of punishment. You begin to trust that you can recover from anything because you are on your own side now. And in this trust, something extraordinary blooms, a sense of emotional freedom, a sense of spaciousness, a sense of being enough without conditions. You begin to understand that self-forgiveness is one of the highest forms of self-love. It is how you reclaim your power. It is how you heal the deepest wounds. It is how you release your inner child from carrying burdens she was never meant to hold. In Part 6, we will explore how your words, spoken inwardly with intention, can nourish the heart, just as forgiveness has uplifted it. But for now, allow this truth to wash through you gently. You did not know then what you know now, and for that you deserve forgiveness. You deserve peace. You deserve to move forward with love. There comes a moment in every healing journey when you begin to notice not only the thoughts you carry, but the weight of them. Words are not small. Words are not silent. Words are not harmless. Words are seeds, each one planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind, growing roots that reach into your emotions, your decisions, your entire sense of self. And for many years, you may have repeated words to yourself that depleted you, tightened you, or dimmed your inner light. But now, you are learning to choose differently. You are learning to choose words that nourish rather than harm, words that soften rather than harden, words that heal rather than wound, words that make your inner child feel safe in your presence. Let yourself consider the truth of this. Every word you speak inwardly shapes how you treat yourself. Think for a moment about how you would speak to a tender child resting in your arms. You would choose gentle words. You would choose warm words. You would speak slowly, kindly, lovingly. You would not rush her. You would not criticize her. You would not use sharp language that causes her heart to close. You would speak in a tone that reassures her that she is safe. This is how you must speak to yourself now. Your inner child listens to every inward whisper. She hears the tone. She feels the meaning. She reacts instantly. When you speak to yourself with harshness, she curls inward, preparing for disappointment. When you speak to yourself with kindness, she opens, softens, and allows healing to occur. The body responds the same way. A harsh word creates tension. A soft word creates ease. A cruel phrase tightens the breath. A loving phrase expands it. You can feel these changes physically. Your body tells you immediately whether your inner language is nourishing or draining. The beautiful thing is that you do not need perfect words. You only need sincere ones, simple ones, words spoken from love rather than fear, words spoken from tenderness rather than habit. Try placing your hand gently on your heart right now. Feel its warmth. Feel its steady rhythm. Then speak inwardly. I am willing to be kind to myself. Notice the shift. Notice the warmth. Notice the tiny opening inside your chest. These small openings are how healing begins. When you choose nourishing words, you are not lying to yourself. You are reminding yourself of what has always been true. You are awakening the love that has been waiting beneath the surface. You are reshaping the inner atmosphere of your life, thought by thought, breath by breath. Many of the phrases you once used, phrases of self-blame, self-doubt, self-disappointment, were learned. You absorbed them from the world around you, from moments when you needed encouragement and received criticism instead. Those phrases were not your voice. They were borrowed from places that did not understand your sensitivity. Now you are learning your true voice, a gentler voice, a compassionate voice, a voice that nurtures instead of wounds. Each time you choose a loving word, you teach your inner child that she is safe with you. Each time you choose a gentle phrase, you soothe her fears. Each time you whisper kindness, you rewrite the emotional climate of your heart. This is how healing occurs, not through force, but through repetition, not through intensity, but through consistency. Repetition is how the mind learns. Repetition is how the heart trusts. Repetition is how the body relaxes. If you say to yourself once, I am loved, the mind may resist. If you say to yourself twice, the heart may soften. If you say it again tomorrow, and the next day and the next. Your inner world begins to believe it, not because the phrase is magical, but because it becomes familiar. Familiarity is safety. Safety is love. Love is transformation. Choosing nourishing words means choosing thoughts that lift you instead of diminish you. It means replacing inner punishment with inner compassion. It means noticing when your mind slips into old patterns and gently guiding it back to kindness. It might sound like, I am learning, I am growing, I deserve patience, I am doing my best, I am worthy of tenderness. These are not dramatic statements, they are small acts of emotional care. Each one builds a bridge between who you have been and who you are becoming. Your inner child will begin to rely on this nourishing language. She will begin to expect kindness rather than fear it. She will begin to trust your voice, not because it is loud, but because it is loving. And as she trusts it, your entire emotional life becomes calmer, more grounded, more peaceful. There may be moments when you forget. There may be moments when old words slip through. There may be moments when the inner critic tries to return. That is all right. Healing is not linear. Healing is not perfect. Healing is a dance of remembering and forgetting and remembering again. The important thing is that you return. Return to the kind words. Return to the gentle tone. Return to the nourishing thoughts. Every return is a triumph. Every return is proof of growth. Every return is an act of love. And over time, your inner language becomes naturally tender. You no longer have to force it. You no longer have to try. Love becomes your default tone. Kindness becomes your natural rhythm. Compassion becomes your inner home. When your words nourish your heart, your entire life transforms. Relationships feel simpler because you are no longer desperate for external validation. Decisions feel lighter because you trust your own inner voice. Rest becomes easier because you no longer punish yourself for needing it. Your path becomes clearer because loving thoughts create clarity where fear once created fog. In the final part of our journey, we will explore how these nourishing words shape not only your thoughts, but your entire identity, how you become someone who treats yourself with love naturally and consistently. But for now, hold this truth close. Every loving word you speak inwardly becomes a small act of healing. And each act of healing becomes a step toward a life lived in kindness. There comes a moment in every healing journey when you begin to notice not only the thoughts you carry, but the weight of them. Words are not small. Words are not silent. Words are not harmless. Words are seeds, each one planted in the fertile soil of your subconscious mind, growing roots that reach into your emotions, your decisions, your entire sense of self. And for many years, you may have repeated words to yourself that depleted you, tightened you, or dimmed your inner light. But now you are learning to choose differently. You are learning to choose words that nourish rather than harm, words that soften rather than harden, words that heal rather than wound, words that make your inner child feel safe in your presence. Let yourself consider the truth of this. Every word you speak inwardly shapes how you treat yourself. Think for a moment about how you would speak to a tender child resting in your arms. You would choose gentle words. You would choose warm words. You would speak slowly, kindly, lovingly. You would not rush her. You would not criticize her. You would not use sharp language that causes her heart to close. You would speak in a tone that reassures her that she is safe. This is how you must speak to yourself now. Your inner child listens to every inward whisper. She hears the tone, she feels the meaning, she reacts instantly. When you speak to yourself with harshness, she curls inward, preparing for disappointment. When you speak to yourself with kindness, she opens, softens, and allows healing to occur. The body responds the same way. A harsh word creates tension, a soft word creates ease, a cruel phrase tightens the breath. A loving phrase expands it. You can feel these changes physically. Your body tells you immediately whether your inner language is nourishing or draining. The beautiful thing is that you do not need perfect words. You only need sincere ones, simple ones, words spoken from love rather than fear, words spoken from tenderness rather than habit. Try placing your hand gently on your heart right now. Feel its warmth, feel its steady rhythm. Then speak inwardly, I am willing to be kind to myself. Notice the shift, notice the warmth. Notice the tiny opening inside your chest. These small openings are how healing begins. When you choose nourishing words, you are not lying to yourself. You are reminding yourself of what has always been true. You are awakening the love that has been waiting beneath the surface. You are reshaping the inner atmosphere of your life. Thought by thought, breath by breath, many of the phrases you once used, phrases of self-blame, self-doubt, self-disappointment, were learned. You absorbed them from the world around you, from moments when you needed encouragement and received criticism instead. Those phrases were not your voice. They were borrowed from places that did not understand your sensitivity. Now you are learning your true voice, a gentler voice, a compassionate voice, a voice that nurtures instead of wounds. Each time you choose a loving word, you teach your inner child that she is safe with you. Each time you choose a gentle phrase, you soothe her fears. Each time you whisper kindness, you rewrite the emotional climate of your heart. This is how healing occurs, not through force, but through repetition, not through intensity, but through consistency. Repetition is how the mind learns. Repetition is how the heart trusts. Repetition is how the body relaxes. If you say to yourself once, I am loved, the mind may resist. If you say to yourself twice, the heart may soften. If you say it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next, your inner world begins to believe it, not because the phrase is magical, but because it becomes familiar. Familiarity is safety. Safety is love. Love is transformation. Choosing nourishing words means choosing thoughts that lift you instead of diminish you. It means replacing inner punishment with inner compassion. It means noticing when your mind slips into old patterns and gently guiding it back to kindness. It might sound like, I am learning, I am growing, I deserve patience, I am doing my best, I am worthy of tenderness. These are not dramatic statements. They are small acts of emotional care. Each one builds a bridge between who you have been and who you are becoming. Your inner child will begin to rely on this nourishing language. She will begin to expect kindness rather than fear it. She will begin to trust your voice, not because it is loud, but because it is loving. And as she trusts it, your entire emotional life becomes calmer, more grounded, more peaceful. There may be moments when you forget. There may be moments when old words slip through. There may be moments when the inner critic tries to return. That is all right. Healing is not linear. Healing is not perfect. Healing is a dance of remembering and forgetting and remembering again. The important thing is that you return. Return to the kind words. Return to the gentle tone. Return to the nourishing thoughts. Every return is a triumph. Every return is proof of growth. Every return is an act of love. And over time, your inner language becomes naturally tender. You no longer have to force it. You no longer have to try. Love becomes your default tone. Kindness becomes your natural rhythm. Compassion becomes your inner home. When your words nourish your heart, your entire life transforms. Relationships feel simpler because you are no longer desperate for external validation. Decisions feel lighter because you trust your own inner voice. Rest becomes easier because you no longer punish yourself for needing it. Your path becomes clearer because loving thoughts create clarity where fear once created fog. In the final part of our journey, we will explore how these nourishing words shape not only your thoughts, but your entire identity, how you become someone who treats yourself with love naturally and consistently. But for now, hold this truth close. Every loving word you speak inwardly becomes a small act of healing. And each act of healing becomes a step toward a life lived in kindness. As we gently come to the close of this journey, I want you to pause with me for a moment, right where you are. Let the world move a little farther away. Let the noise soften at the edges. Let your breath become the center of your experience. You have taken in many ideas, many new ways of relating to yourself, many thoughts that carry healing. Now it is time to let them settle like soft petals drifting quietly to the ground. Healing is not only the learning of new thoughts. Healing is the quiet moment when the heart whispers, yes, this feels true for me. You may feel that whisper now, gentle, hesitant, hopeful. That whisper is your inner child responding. She is not rushing, she is not performing, she is simply opening, allowing herself to receive the warmth you have been offering. Let her open slowly. There is no need for speed here. Healing unfolds at the pace of tenderness. You have spent much of your life speaking to yourself with the tone you were taught, not the tone you needed. And yet here you are choosing new thoughts, choosing new language, choosing new ways of meeting yourself. This choice is not small. It is an act of profound courage. Most people never learn to change the way they treat themselves. They carry old voices to the end of their days. But you, my dear, have chosen to become your own source of love. Take a moment to acknowledge the beauty of that choice. Take a moment to feel how brave you have been. Take a moment to recognize how gently you are changing your life. When you shift your inner language, you shift your entire existence. Thoughts create your mood, your posture, your breath, your reactions, your expectations, your sense of worth. And you have begun choosing thoughts that nourish your heart instead of harm it. You may not see the full transformation yet, but your inner world already feels different. Something is softer, something is warmer, something is kinder. Let yourself notice that. Let yourself breathe in that truth. Let yourself rest in the knowing that healing is already taking place. For many years, your inner child lived in a home shaped by fear, fear of judgment, fear of mistakes, fear of not being enough. That fear became familiar. But familiarity is not safety. Familiarity is simply habit. And habits can be changed when love becomes consistent. You have given her a new home now, a home made of gentle thoughts, a home made of forgiveness, a home made of permission to rest, a home made of kindness. Feel that home around you now. Feel its warmth, feel its stillness, feel its peace. You built this home through the words you chose, through the compassion you offered, through the willingness you cultivated. This new home is spacious. It welcomes your feelings instead of rejecting them. It welcomes your needs instead of dismissing them. It welcomes your mistakes instead of punishing them. It welcomes your softness instead of criticizing it. This is emotional safety. This is love. This is what your inner child has longed for. Many people think transformation must be dramatic. They wait for thunder, for revelation, for sudden clarity. But true healing rarely arrives with noise. True healing arrives quietly, like a softened breath in the middle of the night, like a tension releasing from the body without you noticing, like a thought you once believed losing its power. These subtle shifts are signs that your nervous system is beginning to trust you. Yes, trust you. That is the essence of this journey, your inner child learning to trust the adult you have become. Your heart learning to trust the thoughts you choose. Your emotions learning to trust your gentleness. Your body learning to trust your softness. Trust is not built through force. Trust is built through presence. And you have shown up for yourself over and over again, even when you doubted, even when you hesitated, even when the old thoughts tried to pull you back. You kept returning, returning to love, Returning to kindness. Returning to the desire to treat yourself differently. Return is the greatest sign of healing. You may look back on earlier chapters of your life and feel sadness for the years you spent speaking harshly to yourself. Let that sadness be held gently. It is simply the heart recognizing the contrast between what was and what is becoming possible. You are not meant to feel guilt for your past. You are meant to feel compassion for the younger you who did not yet know how to choose loving thoughts. Say inwardly to that younger self now, "You did not know then, but you are learning now." And I love you for that. Feel the relief of these words. Feel the warmth they bring. Feel the connection they create within you. The child inside you has waited to hear these words, waited through years of pressure, years of misunderstanding, years of silencing her own needs. And now, through your commitment to new thoughts, she is learning something miraculous. She is lovable. She is safe. She is allowed to rest. She is allowed to feel. She is allowed to make mistakes. She is allowed to receive love. This epilogue is not an ending, it is a blessing, a moment of honoring the transformation you have begun. It is a soft light illuminating the path ahead of you, a path where self-love is no longer a distant idea, but a daily practice, a daily relationship, a daily remembering of who you truly are beneath the layers of old conditioning. And so, as we move deeper into this epilogue, I want you to carry this truth gently in your heart. You are becoming someone who treats themselves with love, slowly, tenderly, beautifully. And it is changing everything. As you rest in this moment, I want you to notice the subtle but powerful changes beginning to bloom within you. Healing rarely feels dramatic. It reveals itself the way sunrise reveals itself, quietly, gradually, through light that grows without demanding attention. The thoughts you have practiced are becoming part of your inner rhythm. Your heart is learning a new language, and it learns through repetition, through softness, through love. You may have begun this journey believing that change needed to be hard. Many people do. They believe transformation requires discipline, force, willpower. But the truth is far kinder. Change occurs most deeply when the heart feels safe. And safety grows through gentle words, compassionate thoughts, patient breath. Safety grows through giving yourself the same kindness you once gave everyone else. Let yourself feel the safety you have created. Feel how your breath no longer rushes to defend itself. Feel how your shoulders no longer carry the weight of the entire world. Feel how your heart no longer closes at the sound of your own voice. This is what it means to become a friend to yourself. When you think a nourishing thought, you are doing far more than shaping your mind. You are soothing your inner child, lifting your emotional body, calming your nervous system, and reminding your spirit that it is allowed to exist freely. Let yourself return to each of the 7 thoughts for a moment, not as lessons, but as companions that now walk beside you. I am willing to see myself differently. This was the doorway, the first soft opening, the small crack of light that allowed everything else to unfold. Without willingness, nothing changes. With willingness, everything can. I no longer speak to myself as an enemy. This was the turning point. The moment your inner voice shifted from threat to tenderness. You learned that tone shapes experience, and that your inner world flourishes when spoken to with kindness. My needs are important and deserve tender attention. This was your return to yourself. You stopped abandoning your heart. You listened, not because you felt weak, but because you finally understood your needs were worthy of love. I am safe to rest without earning it. This was liberation. The moment your inner child learned she did not have to justify her exhaustion, the moment you remembered that rest is a birthright, not a reward. I forgive myself for not knowing what I could not have known. This thought freed you from years of guilt. You stopped punishing the person you once were. You embraced compassion instead of shame. I choose words that nourish my heart. This was your reparenting. You created an inner home where softness and warmth now live. You gave the child within you a new language, a language of safety. And finally, I am becoming someone who treats themselves with love. This is who you are now becoming with every breath. As these thoughts weave themselves gently into your awareness, you may begin to sense a different quality in your presence, less urgency, less self-doubt, less inner pressure. You may find that your reactions soften, not because you are trying to be calm, but because calmness is becoming familiar. You may find that your decisions come from clarity rather than fear. You may find that your heart feels more spacious, more trusting, more aligned with love. Transformation is not sudden. It is steady. It is subtle. It is deeply personal. Let yourself appreciate the tenderness of your own unfolding. Healing is not measured by how perfectly you think loving thoughts, but by how often you return to them. And you have been returning again and again. That return is healing. That return is devotion. That return is you choosing yourself. There may still be moments when the old thoughts appear. Of course they will. They are habits. They are echoes of earlier pain. But now, instead of believing them instantly, you will pause. You will breathe. You will respond with the new voice you have been cultivating. You will say, "No, my dear, we do not speak that way anymore." And your inner child will lean closer to you, trusting that your kindness is real. Life will begin to reflect this inner shift as well. You will notice that certain situations no longer drain you. Certain relationships feel lighter. Certain burdens feel less heavy. The world responds differently to a heart that treats itself with love. Not because the world has changed, but because you have changed the way you meet it. You have softened the edges inside you. You have created room for compassion. You have begun nurturing your own spirit rather than criticizing it. This is not the end of your journey. This is the beginning of a new relationship with yourself, one built on patience, understanding, gentleness, and truth. And truth, my dear, is always simple. You deserve love. You deserve peace. You deserve tenderness. You deserve to be treated with kindness, especially by yourself. As we move into the final part of this epilogue, you will integrate these truths into a deeper understanding of who you are becoming and how this new way of relating to yourself will continue to shape the rest of your life. For now, breathe deeply and rest in this awareness. You are choosing love, and love is choosing you.